Hey there, friends. I know Halloween is right around the corner, and it's traditional for people to dress up and act like they're something that they're not. However, I don't think the NIH should be funding such a pretend project, if you will. First, guys, go check out my friends over at Gideon Optics. These guys make some incredible optics. They have the brand new Granite MOS competition red dot sight that's out right now. You can get this thing for $249, regularly $319. It's got the largest MOA reticle inside the largest lens that they have available, engineered from feedback received from all the competitive shooters over the years that they've spoken to. This thing is tough, aircraft grade aluminum construction. And the battery change is extremely quick. This thing is nice. It's something that you probably want to use. Don't be fooled by the competition name on it, because this is for everybody. It's just that it's going to give really good response if you're in competition as well. So check them out. Gideon Optics. Use my code FTATF, again FTATF, and receive a nice little discount. Woke doctor refused to publish a $10 million trans kid study that showed puberty blockers did not help mental health. Duh. Did we need a $10 million study to tell us that? I mean, honestly, let's be real here. I understand people have some ideological axes to grind, and they have political agendas they're trying to fill. But did you really need $10 million to tell you that stunting the growth hormonally of a teenager was not going to have a positive outlook? I mean, I could have given you $10 for that. A prominent doctor and trans rights advocate admitted she deliberately withheld publication of a $10 million taxpayer-funded study on the effect of puberty blockers on American children after finding no evidence that they improve patients' mental health, which tells me the fact that they say after finding no evidence that they improve patients' mental health means that she had an outcome already preconceived in her mind that she was hoping for. Dr. Joanna Olson Kennedy told the New York Times this week that she believes the study would be, quote, weaponized by critics of transgender care for kids, and that the research could one day be used in court to argue we shouldn't use blockers. Now, this chick Kennedy is considered the country's leading advocate for providing gender-affirming care to adolescents, quote, unquote. I want you to see that sentence again, or hear that sentence again. She's considered the country's leading advocate for providing gender-affirming care to adolescents, but she's withholding negative results of a study that talk about that gender-affirming care to adolescents. So she's really not an advocate for the children. She's an advocate for the process of providing gender-affirming care to adolescents. There is a big difference. You can put all the things you want that are fluffy and nice and shiny and make you feel good on your own business card. But you are not a child advocate if you are hiding results from a study that you conducted yourself. If you're hiding those results that negatively impact that study, which involved children, so it negatively impacted the children, but you don't want that to get out, because you're not looking at the children as somebody that you're advocating for. You're looking at the process that you're advocating for. Huge difference. You cannot be both if you're hiding the effects of your study that negatively impacted the children. Now, when asked by the New York Times why the results have not been made public after 9 years of this study taking place, she said, "I do not want our work to be weaponized," adding, "It has to be exactly on point, clear and concise, and that takes time." Makes me wonder if she had rosy results that came out and all these children were doing absolutely wonderful, if the results would have been acceptable at that point. Because she's not, again, as I stated in the beginning of the video, she had a preconceived notion of what she wanted. Because she's not receiving the results that she set out to pull out of this study, the study's not adequate. She then flat out admitted that she was afraid the lack of mental health improvements borne out by the study could one day be used in court to argue we shouldn't use blockers. So your study is saying you shouldn't use blockers. But you don't want people to see those results, because in spite of the negative results, you still want to use blockers. There's something sinister going on in this person's mind. If we did a study back in the day on Philip Morris selling cigarettes, and suddenly, now this probably did happen, to be honest with you, that just figured out in our study that it provided lung cancer, Would it be okay to hide the results? Again, that probably did happen. But would that be okay? Would you be okay with that? From a societal standpoint, would you be okay with that? From a morality standpoint, would you be okay with that? If we found out that Kool-Aid caused tongue cancer or gum cancer, if just drinking Kool-Aid caused it, and because we really like Kool-Aid and want to keep selling Kool-Aid to kids, we determined that, hey, that study really doesn't give us the results. We thought it was going to say the study makes kids super happy. It actually causes cancer. What do? Let's hide the study. Is that morally right? Especially if we're, quote, advocating for children? A Washington Post study actually found that 68% of U.S. adults are against providing puberty blockers to trans-identifying youth ages 10 to 14, and 58% oppose hormone treatments for those ages 15 to 17. Now, that's a little bit shocking to me. 68%. You realize that it's certainly not half the country is Democrat and half the country is Republican. That 68% number shows that a very large portion of even Democrats who support everything else that these wackos on the far left are trying to push, that even a large chunk of those people still do not support providing puberty blockers to these confused children. Boston College clinical and research psychologist Amy Tishelman, who was one of the original researchers on the study, pointed out the obvious contradiction in withholding scientific evidence on the grounds that it doesn't match an expected conclusion. She said, I understand the fear about it being weaponized, but it's really important to get the science out there. So what's the point of a study if we're going to ignore the results? So she's wanting to do something no matter what in spite of the results. Now this next person kind of surprised me. Erica Anderson, a clinical psychologist and a transgender youth expert, told the Post that she was shocked and disturbed about the decision to withhold publication of such vital research. Quote, we're craving information about these medical treatments for gender questioning youth. Olson Kennedy has the largest grant that's ever been awarded in the United States on the subject and is sitting on that data. Now I went back and looked, and apparently there were some additional grants that were awarded after the initial grant was awarded. Because when you go back to this study, which was in 2015, or at least the awarding of the NIH funds, it originally was a $5.7 million grant that was given to this lady in Los Angeles. So it's supposed to be a 5-year grant for $5.7 million. So they must have piled on another $4.3 million and maybe extending it for another 4 or 5 years, because again, this is going on 9 years and this original one was for 5. But it's definitely a large sum of money. In fact, the $5.7 million grant was a huge one as it stood, but with an additional amount of money to make it 10. This is by far the largest type of grant of this nature ever in this field. Now, I went back to a report on the NIH's own website about this study about midway through it taking place. Of course, you can see this is from their own website, the psychological characteristics of transgender youth seeking gender-affirming medical treatment, baseline findings from the TYC study. Again, this is the study that we're talking about from Dr. Kennedy. Now, some key things that their own reporting came at. Now, again, this is from Kennedy herself. She approved this report a few years ago to come out concerning this exact study. It talks about I'm just going to use some of the acronyms here because I can't pronounce some of these words. The GnRHA is one form of a hormone releasing type drug that they had, and a gender affirming hormone drug of GAH were used. So it was 2 different types of, let's call it hormonal therapy, that were used in this study. It says a total of 95 youth were enrolled in the GnRH cohort. That's that particular drug. And out of those 95 in that GnRHA, 23.6% endorsed lifetime suicidal ideation, with 7.9% reporting a past suicide attempt. Those are high numbers. So what that means is these people at some point had suicidal thoughts of some sort, with 7.9% of them actually attempting it. With the other drug, the GAH drug, 66.6% endorsed lifetime suicide ideation, with 24.6% reporting a past suicide attempt. That is humongous. That is a high number. Look at that. I mean, both drugs that were used definitely produced pretty high numbers of about a quarter of the people in them reporting either suicidal thoughts or worse, the second drug, the GAH, which again was a gender affirming hormone, that one produced 66.6% of thoughts of suicide with a whopping almost 25% reporting a past suicide attempt. Guys, a huge difference between suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts. That means that a quarter of these people taking this drug attempted to take their own lives. Think about that. 1/4 of the pool of your people, 1 in 4 people that you had in this study tried to take their own lives as a result of taking this drug, and you are trying to hide the results because you want people to continue to take the same drugs that made 24.6% of them try to take their own lives. If you look at the numbers right here, it talks about this total sample of 308 people here. It breaks it down from a depression standpoint, right? Minimum depression all the way to severe depression. Look at those numbers. Again, 48% had minimal depression, 17 had mild, 18 had moderate, and 15 had severe. Those suicide attempts were likely included in that 15% with the severe depression. Now, moving on to the next slide, you're going to see lifetime suicide attempt. Guys, these numbers are unacceptable in any kind of circle. 24.6% of the people who took their drug in their study attempted to take their own lives. 75 young people. That's 75 people in their mid-teens that they distributed a drug to, and these people tried to take their lives, and they are trying to cover this fact up because it's not revealing the results they would like for it to reveal. So they want to cover up these attempted suicides as a result of that. This doctor claimed that the participants in this study had good mental health on average. I guess the 25% of people attempting to take their lives did not average into this or didn't move the needle enough for her not to make the false claim that they had good mental health. So let me share this number with you. Already, transgender people not included in her study already have a suicide attempt rate of 41%, meaning 41% of the people who identify as gender pretenders or transgender who have gender dysphoria, a clinically diagnosed issue, mental issue, already attempt to take their own lives. Her study has unofficially, because she won't release the official results, even though we see these from the NIH study, but her own study is showing that 25% roughly of the people taking a particular drug, it's causing them, when they didn't have those suicidal thoughts or attempts prior to taking this drug. So we already have a pool of people in the country experiencing a 41% suicide attempt rate, and now we're going to give them a drug that has a 25% rate of increasing those attempts to take their own lives. And we want to hide the results that reveal these numbers. Think I'm being too hard on the good doctor? Check out this video that I dug up earlier today.
People get married when they're under 20. Actually, people choose colleges to go to. Actually, people make life-altering decisions in adolescence. All the time. All the time. And honestly, most of them are good. It's just the bad ones that we talk about. Oh my God, the cinnamon challenge, right? I mean, why do we know about it? Because it's a thing, and it's not common. Like, most teenagers aren't eating cinnamon, right? But some are, and they're on YouTube, and that's stupid. But we don't put on YouTube the things that are really good decisions, right? Oh my gosh, my kid took the SATs. Not a very exciting after-school special, right? But so what we do know is that adolescents actually have the capacity to make a reasoned, logical decision. And here's the other thing about chest surgery. If you want breasts at a later point in your life, you can go and get them.
So if you've made all the wrong decisions and you decide to take these drugs that could cause you to take your own life or try to take your own life, if you make it past that gauntlet, and then if you were a woman, at some point if you removed your breasts, if you're a woman and you decide you want them back, you can still get them. That's what she's saying. She's saying that young people of these ages make these types of very important that she claims decisions. They get married, for God's sake. How many people, how good of a decision is that for a person in their mid-teens to decide to get married, right? What are the stats on that one? They're not going, you're going to want to hide those results too. But she's saying, hey, no harm, no foul. Man, if you want to take these medications and you want to try to pretend to be a man and you have breast surgery to remove that, hey, if you decide once you get in your 20s that you made a bad call on that, no big deal. Just get some fake ones, right? What a resolution that is, isn't it? Friends, at the point of conducting a study like this, we're not even going to talk about the fallacy of taking government money, taxpayer money. Government doesn't have money, it's ours. We're not even going to talk about the screw up of that, how that's even allowed. How is that even allowed? And where's the teeth? Who now tells her, no, you have to give us this study. We paid for it. We need to see these results. But this woman goes through a 9-year process of conducting this study, determines that the study is not revealing the numbers and the answers that she wants in order to continue to push her agenda. So she hides those. Guys, the moment that she made the decision to not disclose the scientific study that she conducted, up to that point, she was a scientist. But the moment she made a decision not to release the results because they did not reveal the results that she was hoping for, she stopped being a scientist and she started becoming or being an activist, a political activist, a pawn of the far left. She should no longer ever have any credibility in the medical realm of any kind, not whatsoever, because she chose to stop being a scientist and become a political activist. And guess what? At the expense of young people. How sickening is that? That's how mad and distorted these people are. They would be willing to do something like this and have the collateral damage of all these children left in their wake just to prove a point and just to get their way. That's what's on the ballot in a couple of weeks, guys. We need to think long and hard before we cast our vote this time.
I don't understand the point that you're making.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this